Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everyone of our listeners, wherever on a day in the world. Thanks for listening again, or thanks for tuning in, for listening to the show. And as always, this is a participatory program coming to our live, so you can call and ask questions. You can call and make suggestions. You can call and express disagreement. So we always try to make it as liberal and as accessible as possible. The reason being, we not get no political motive as far as we're concerned in terms of presenting ideas. Our purpose is just to make real contribution despite the distance where we did from home, but we are serious, we are as concerned, and we are as committed in trying to make sure that lives are improved for the people in back home. And we think, say, some of we get 1 or 2 cents. Well, that is slang word for some sense. We want to make we only the contribution, and thankful for the fact that we get VOS, we make with voices and with views and with ideas are going from to all corners of the world. So we are very grateful, and I think when I say we listen, we have to be grateful, thanks to social media, because we learn instantly from each other, an ability we will never get just a few years ago. So again, the basic rules are simply that when you call in, you be respectful to the host, as well as if there had been a caller before you, to be respectful if you disagree with the expressions of that previous caller day, to be respectful to that caller day. If you disagree, just do them in a respectable manner, tell me why you disagree, and your point will be noted, and because we try for land from each other. So that person that you disagree with, if you state a commonsensical or logical or actual knowledgeable reason why you disagree, that person may learn from what you say. But if you call for disrespect and for cause time or something, nothing is added to the program and you haven't added anything. Okay? So we just want to let people understand the spirit with which this program is presented. You know, it is presented in the spirit of national harmony, national interest, for national progress. So please, that is one. So, of course, today is Sunday, January 15th. Now, again, the other thing we can like for bring to the attention of people then are the numbers them where people have in case they want for reach we. Most of you are familiar with the ways and means way for reach we. But sometimes we don't know when somebody new is listening to the show by just accidentally running into them and know very little about the show, or may have been told about the show, but not even know how to access them. Because even me, I get friends and relatives who over and over, they say to me, well, I want to listen to your show, but and you know, agree send me the link, you know, agree do this, even though I don't do them over and over. So for whatever reason, we always like for repeat their numbers there. So first we're there on Instagram, we're there on Facebook, with the cam on YouTube. So in case you, particularly YouTube, if you miss the show at times, or most times, or all the time, I don't know for sure, you may find us on YouTube when you go back. And the show also is recorded. So even if you go to the link, you know, if you go to the link, you can see not only this show they do so live, all previous shows can be seen. Okay. Now the numbers that you want to reach us at. Now for the toll-free number, it is 1-866-944-7722. 866-944-7722. If you call from the UK, now plus 44 20 80 89 1455. Again, plus 44 20 80 89 1455. If you do call from Australia, now plus 61 29 09 84 337. From Australia, it's plus 61 29 09 84 337. And of course, if you're calling from WhatsApp or on WhatsApp, now 1 343 997 5828. 1 343 997 5828. I also encourage, because I get some Nigerian friends, clients, colleagues, where Nigerian themselves can talk Creole, because everybody knows this show is presented in Creole because it's mainly being broadcast for the convenience of Sierra Leoneans at home and abroad, but particularly those at home. So I don't get 2, 3 Nigerian friends, even Gambian, and we then say, I don't see you show, I don't listen to them. And the question I can ask them, well, do you or did you understand what we were saying? And some of them will say yes, because Nigerians, they get their own Creole, was slightly different from we own. Then they call them Pidgin. So as I can say, well, if you understand Pidgin, you go understand what Creole. They say, yeah. Then the Gambians, I've had Gambians who are also clients, some of whom are back home, some of whom are ambassadors at different places, where they'll tell me, sit and run across to a show. Then I say, but are you able to follow up what we're saying in Creole? And they say, well, yeah, because in Gambia, we have the Sierra Leonean style of Creole. So some of us, we're used to intermingling with, they then call them the Aku, in Gambia, but then they talk we on Creole, same identical Creole. So then some of them can follow up. But I also can encourage them, say, if you have anything to say, don't hesitate. Don't think you have to call in and say it in Creole, or don't hold back because you cannot speak Creole. Call and express yourself in English. I said you'll be more than welcome, and we will respond to you in English. I say, so please, so I always encourage them, don't be held back just because we are speaking in we local Pidgin or in we local language. So I'm saying this so people can follow the trend, to encourage others who may not be Sierra Leoneans, who may be interested in calling in, and not to be held back only because we are speaking in the local dialect. So please, feel free. This show is for all of us. Okay? Now, we get several topics. The topics for today are in line with the previous Supreme Court hearing where it take place between the opposition and the, I would say, the Electoral Commissioner, in reference to the method of elections, what we will get, whether in a proportional representation or what you can call, I think, the NIN, but or the constituency and system. So there was a big hoopla about that. So recently, the opposition asked the Supreme Court for weigh in and try to see which way to go. So I get, me particularly, I get just an observation about the method, but that will come within the comments that we'll get for go through. So I need not go through the subheadings them, because as we get into it, when I go see, say we get a lot for talk about that proportional representation there, parliament, and the midterm census, the constitutional provision, justification by statistics, Sierra Leone, and the involvement of the Ministry of Development and Economic Planning, the process that was adopted. So there will be a lot of uh, subtext to all the things we would try for present. So we hope we will follow. Last but not least, and then of course we get one or two short public interest stories. Them we get for do through system of government, with system of laws, with system of election and all that in there. So we will bring force. Just forget that out of the way. And last but not least, I want to let people know say uh, the lines will be open as soon as we get started. So if you have anything, because sometimes some people not get the entire 2 hours for listening to a program because for conflicting interest, they get other things for do. Then get for go work, then get for go church, today being Sunday, or they get prior engagement or subsequent engagement will conflict with the entirety of we own program. So then probably go on for call early. So in the interest and convenience of them people in there, would open the line early. So right from the get-go. So if you have anything for contribute or for call and say you are free to call at any time as soon as the program begins. Again, that when I know say we'll get one basic rule. We get 3 minutes time span for you for express what you get for say. We know say sometimes some people can get a lot for say, and we're not trying to discourage people from doing that. But for the orderly, we not change the 3 minutes time. Then we also, after the 3 minutes run out, we get a buzzer way to go on for remind you say your time is up. So we'll give you 15 seconds, which is extremely short, just to wrap it up. In case you get more for say, in the interest of everybody, since sometimes we do have a lot of callers on the line, we suggest that you go back to the beginning and take another place in the line by cutting short you when the buzzer go off, cut your conversation. You can recall or you can call back if you want, so we can take on another caller. And then sometimes not even want to take on another caller. Sometimes people can say something will need immediate response, because if you take 2-3 calls, there is a tendency for not for end up addressing maybe the first caller or the second caller if we need for give a response or for a follow-up on that. So the rule now 3 minutes. So please now follow the 3-minute rule and follow the buzzer and come back in line, and we'll strongly encourage you for call back, stay in line so you can be able to finish what you be to say. Now, what you want to touch on now, 2 quick things before we go into the major stuff. Number one, we'll get a situation involving a certain person who was detained and may also let me tell everybody say Miss Fadima, who is a co-presenter, also is not going to be here on the show. Substituting for him and co-presenting with me now Mr. Victor Mengot, a very able, capable, knowledgeable, outstanding person who is going to be able to make the show even more interesting. So that said, we'll get 2 little public interest topic we will want for just start with. One involved a gentleman who was held for contempt involving the AfroCell situation. It's a civil thing in court where some judge levies some unconscionable or a grossly unreasonable. In fact, I will add the word ridiculous fine on the guy. And I cannot imagine The bar association back home is sitting down making, and this is a guy who is speaking in the public interest. I cannot imagine we'll get a profession that we call the legal profession, who we just sit down, they not see the outrageousness of this oppressive fine imposed on this man, and haven't done anything in the form of a protest. Then, needless to even talk about the journalism profession. So we need for these two organizations realize, maybe they will therefore remind them about the significance in a democracy. Their role very important, unlike other professions. One of the media, like I say, there's a school of thought that said not to 3 arms in a democracy get now. The average democracy get 4. You get the legislature, you get the executive, you get the judiciary, and you get the media. Because no democracy will function without a very vigorous, active media. No democracy. And politicians, the people that would afraid the most. Now, journalists, particularly investigative or tenacious journalists. But now we see in Australia, the journalism profession, not only that they compromise their integrity, but they are getting more silent by the day. Because something like this should be so outrageous. And there is no such thing, even in Sierra Leone, because we have to let people begin to understand. Judges are not beyond criticism. The right for criticize not limit you from criticizing a judge, because you get a free speech right, as long as you are within the context of your professional guidelines. And the legal profession, let me remind you now, for say, when I roll, where we not seem to understand. And one of the reasons may very well be because I'm an American trained lawyer. I'm familiar with constitutional arguments. It's a common thing to we. Even if you go magistrate court, you can argue cases on constitutional issues. You're not careful which day you reach at the Supreme Court. We right from the basics, we are familiar with phrases like due process, So maybe that's why I see it comes to me naturally. But let me remind the legal profession, Sierra Leone. If it were not for the legal profession in this country, in America, black people will have been riding at the back of the bus. Separate and unequal will have been the law of the land. These things did not change out of nowhere. It was because of the tenacity of lawyers who took matters to court, who stood their ground, who challenged the law, who challenged custom, who challenged practice, that we are enjoying the democracy where America enjoyed today. The lawyers. That's in the history of the profession, that's why that profession there was referred to as the noble profession. Somehow along the line since independence, the nobility or the noble nature of the profession has been dropped somewhere. We still find it. We left the word noble. It's just a profession. Because we not think in a profession we get any responsibility to society, to change society. But among all the professions that you can count on, we are flying in safer planes, we are driving safer cars, we are eating safer foods, we are protecting international and human rights, and all engineered because of the law and lawyers. If that profession did not exist, we would have been living like or as barbarians. In fact, civilization would not have been if the legal profession did not exist. Civilization will not be where it is today. So this is a very important profession. So maybe they can begin to teach all of that in the classrooms, in Freetown, and wherever they get law school in Australia, may they understand the significance of this profession. It's just not a profession for go, learn, get the credentials for make money. You know, you get direct connection with contribution to society. So when we see something like that, the legal profession should be appalled when you get a judge, where by all indication, and by it appears as if this is a punitive measure against someone who is speaking for the public against some usurious profit where the government don't allow, or the governments don't allow some foreign companies. Even I think that one time, I think a Sierra Leonean company too, where the figure say people shouldn't talk. They get for keep and just use, misusing the instrument or the power of the judiciary for oppress free speech, which is what it boils down to. When you begin to impose billions of leones of fine on anyone, I mean, that's a way of silencing the person in free speech. And I think the legal profession, if you're listening, it's about time when I wake up, because being silent is an acquiescence. When I agree by not opposing, that when I get no problem with that. And so this is no way to go about it. That said, let me just pass over to my co-host, who may have a few words to say on this Afro-Cell thing.
Well, we fumbled them in a good evening, in a kushe, and my co-presenter, Mr. Shilo, don't put all the legal argument. And the person who they talk about, Edmund Nabu, is a civil society activist. The first thing I will get for make, this case has been in court for 5 years. 5 good years. As they say, justice delayed is justice denied. So we don't get 4 different judges where they deal with this case. And waiting at the case, now because they say the telecommunications company them, then they overcharge people them and give them poor service. So my concern is that the person will bring this case, apart from the fact that the day before the case, they say he go on social media or give press conference and talk about the case before the judge give judgment. He didn't court, now the judge, they get a bench warrant. The man was in court when they get a bench warrant. And then say for contempt of court, he get for go down for 21 days. Added to that, when the judge make a ruling, he fine him 7 billion leones. For we Sierra Leoneans the way they abroad, we know so money don't to boku now, although we don't get redenomination. 7 billion leones in terms of pounds sterling is about 330,000 pounds and slightly over $400,000. So the key when you put, how the judge come with that fine? One, is it for reputational damage? Say because what even they talk, it affect the company. Is it for loss of income? That's now another issue. Then we talk about the issue of affordability. If that man go able to pay him according to the means, which I would say definitely no. And what will happen if he's unable to pay? He will go to jail. But then the interesting thing that happened, after all that, the two the man in effect for a few days after, the telecommunication company, they increase the price again and reduce the service rate and they give people them. So these are issues of public interest. So I know some co-hosts talk about the arms of government. He talk about the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive, and add the media there as the fourth. Me go make and the 5. Civil society. But me not, and I not like use that word as civil society because some people and they say if because then they connive. We talk about public interest entity. Their role now for protect the interest of the public. So we go keeping informed as time goes on this particular issue. So now my own comments then they will make on the outcome of this case.
Yeah.
Over to you.
To add to that, thank you, Mr. Mango. To add to that, indeed, now America, now England, I don't know how we get the phrase back home, civil society, but now if it is a law firm, they will be referred to as a public interest law firm. Now, public interest and the phrase we know because these are organizations or law firms that are taking matters to court or raising issues in the interest of the public, including the judge himself and his family or her family. And you raise appropriate issues. And this is why the lawyers in the for begin for the argue, because it's not only the executive that tend to overreach. They do a lot of things way unconstitutional and they're not being challenged. That's why regardless of how the outcome of this proportional representation case come, it's about time the bar takes some activist role by letting Parliament know that they do not have the absolute say so. They have the power, like we say, I think in that argument today in the courts, there was one distinction, I think, where the Supreme Court dealt with or definition wouldn't give. Now the difference between power and authority. You see? So even though Parliament may have the power to legislate, it has to be based on authority to legislate. So Parliament has been passing laws, and this is because of the unfamiliarity of lawyers with constitutional issues. So Parliament has been passing laws for which they have no such authority, because they therefore derive their authority from the Constitution, which is the Supreme Court, supreme law of the land. Parliament is not supreme. The Constitution is what is supreme. We need to get that in our head. So, in fact, there are some issues we'll go address. You go find it for say, laws concerning some of their elections, the Parliament passed. They did not have, they may have had the power, but they didn't have the authority. They did not derive that authority there for delegates and pass certain act. We will get into that. Then I think we also get for realize for say, not only the executive, they overreach, the judiciary themselves, judges don't seem to understand the limitation of their power. They think they get absolute power. Unless they get a local rule that I'm unfamiliar with, but as a general rule, in a constitutional democracy, unless there is prohibition, an order issued by the sitting judge on the matter, that he will not want the matter published until the case is over, you cannot be held in contempt because you write about the case. If you're not a journalist or if you're not an ordinary citizen, there is no such thing that you cannot write about the case just because it's in a court. There's a constitutional issue here. Why shouldn't a journalist write about an ongoing hearing or trial? What is that based on? So this judge where they hold this man for contempt, let's cite some authority that we know of other than a flagrant abuse of power. So we therefore begin put checks and balances on the excesses of judges too. You know, there was another case involving the singer, I don't know which name, where they get the dreadlock, where they arrest,
LAJ.
where they go lock up. LAJ was some magistrate just in a short period of time, judge them, lock them up. These are all, I mean, way beyond gross abuse of the Constitution. So it's not only politicians that we will get for the concern about. We serve for the self-check, we serve within the profession, which means judges, they need ongoing training about the use of power because they get enormous power and therefore need to know the limitation of their power. And sometimes the way you limit them power, let them know there are certain guidelines they should follow. Guidelines have to be set for judges. They shouldn't have the absolute power to just arbitrarily throw a 300 and some thousand pounds judgment on someone who is arguing a case in the interest of the general public. and is being punished punitively, then I will hope Parliament and the lawyers themselves will begin to look into whether people should be put in jail for civil violation. You know, and then if to win higher, that will even be double jeopardy in the sense that, first of all, well, I take the phrase back, double jeopardy, because it doesn't really apply. It means something else. But in the sense that the judge don't find the guy, then they lock him up. Two punishments just for publishing or making comment. I mean, and the legal profession has some common phrases then. Reasonableness of your conduct, reasonableness of your power, reasonableness of your decision. Does the judge see that as being within the context of reasonableness for punitively punish someone by locking them up and then financially impose an unconscionable, you know, fine on the person, fine where you know very well say he lacks the ability to pay. So again, the legal profession, you guys got a lot to do. It's just not the politicians who are rotten in the country. You see, a democracy is like a car. If three wheels have balanced tires, well pumped, and the fourth wheel, even if deflate, the tire pressure is not up to the recommended level, and with the other three, the car is not going to run smoothly. If the tires are all good, but the alternator or something is wrong, the car is not going to even start. A democracy can always work and work smoothly when all the cylinders, all the apparatus of the democracy are working, and that is including the judiciary. So we need for the same with judge. I say a judges college, in Reno, Nevada, where I know some Sierra Leonean judges have attended. We need for begin training with judges then. We not get institute of government like what we do now, because when you become a judge, then they make you go to the institute of government and begin for land and make you realize your role in society don't change. And for begin put the objectivity cap on. Okay, so we not get that. So, but what we're saying, this is a bad indication, because if judges are not giving guidelines how to use the enormous power, then will ruin the system. So that is all I get for say for now, because in this country constitutionally, that we will say the fine, the £330,000 fine equivalent, will create a chilling effect on the public and the profession. I mean, I talk about the journalism profession, So you just can't allow magistrates and judges for just use their power arbitrarily. Somebody get for bring them activities on the check. And I can say that freely because the average lawyer back home will be hesitant for say that, because they then go all in self lock them up. But again, that make when I get for fight, now which day you become the victim, because these are unreasonable stuff. If you tell the public what happen, that somebody get locked up, and then the company had the audacity, after the judge don't do this, then turn around, they increase the very thing where the man with the fed against, then decrease the quality of service. Now, how insulting can that be? How unduly advantageous can that be for the public? It's just wrong. So now we'll move on to some other issues. Unless my co-host gets something to say, we can move on to the main issues then we'll be talk about. So, Mr. Mango, if you get something to say, you can say that. Otherwise, we can move right straight to the other issues then that are lined up to be talked about.
I think in the interest of what we don't start so well for continue, we get so many things that the hard for people then. Let me move on to the next one. And
okay, let me interrupt you, sir. May I interrupt you? I
Yeah.
forgot. There's one other thing about election, an example about the Penembu thing. I think I missed that. So can I just inject that into the
I think that
process?
would be most appropriate for take me to the main discussion today.
Okay, thank you. Now, the other day, we have a video we'll go ask the technical room for showy for play. In fact, I wish they show the comment I just give about the AfroCell thing. There is an audio attached to that, but we didn't play it for the technical team not player. But there's a video I wonder we just see about Penembu. Let we listen to what they say, and then this has to do with elections in Sierra Leone and how why we think say now so election or now so people mind from the condition into participating in election. We're not going to be America, Australia, Canada for behave like civilized people. So if the control room can play that, we would appreciate that.
God and I make a say at this forum also. If what them mobile coming here they do to this country, if it good, you go imagine somebody don't defend the country. This Edmond Abu don't get this mobile coming and go to court from 2017. Check from 2017 to 2023. How many years? Now the guy don't go to court, but then go pass judgment. Say then guy don't tell them they thief this country also. Therefore return everything on thief free. They will give free call, or then they make their services more compatible so that everybody go benefit and enjoy. But guess what don't happen now? The magistrate or the judge them all go handle the matter. The all Edmo Abu they don't jail and say contempt of court. Hey, contempt of court. The man don't get go this case. Now court from 2017. We're not jail on for contempt of court. Now not the jail Edmo Abu because waiting they don't demand say they will get justice. Then what happened? Just after they jail the guy within 48 hours, they don't it's all the tariff and go up. Now APC SFP business this no, this is a national issue. This is a national issue. This is not a party issue. This is against the state now. Because look the boy, Edmond Abu is about defend Sierra Leone. The magistrate or the judge or the all government use the same mobile come in the house for make calls. They formula they use them. Oh, I don't know, so when they get free call and free stream, they make the old boy in jail. So now what they will say, instead of win the case, whether the country benefits out of this mobile coming there, they make them jail Edmond Abu so that the country will go at a loss. All this one they don't have, whether the government look bad, now people they say SFP government not better. So that people go vote against SFP, now SFP come on power. That they try to do. But fine. But SFP back this way they try to do them, that's a deserve them because they know they talk, nobody is talking, nobody know make communication, everybody there sit down and relax. Communication minister know they work. Do I know they work at the communication department so they share the good news about the government, they know they work? Everybody just relax. Now look at the price of things them. Every day you wake and sleep. Now different prices they wake up with. The pharmacies them, then the S medicine price by week. Panadol will be the bank today 2,000 for 10. Now Panadol now 5 for 2,000. So every day things that go worse, and nobody is telling us anything they happen. Trade ministry they talk, finance they talk, agriculture they all just relax. So now who self would help them now? Until they want relax, so they join the relax now. Because me never they talk to so my brother. Me na SFP blogger, bing. We are working talk about the government, how they promote the good things of the government. But if they were they talk about defend and then defend we. So now we all the point and now almost all this scatter. By the time they June 23. All man go don't know what for do now. Yeah, because they all for defend we, they don't defend we. Then they do the wrong thing. Because President Biya, it's high time, they got do the old Edmond Abu. Now be high time for Aneki grab and say, this man they drive for defend Sierra Leone. Not to him tribe they defend, not to him pocket they defend, not to him family they defend. He says Sierra Leone. He said the mobile coming on thief for far too long. And look at man now. All the free call they don't pull them. Sierra Leone get cola, we get all kind system them. 24 hours, always they talk for 5,000. But no, not again. I remember Cusero them he come 2024 they talk. They don't pull all. Ebo, that's not what he go there. Then the last facility where they give them pull another last time. Oh, Edmond Abu be threatened say we go demonstrate to go parliament. Then them blow. Now when they say they pass judgment, when they pass judgment now, they don't leave the Abu, they don't lock them, then they don't ace the price back again. In fact, the worst time pass outside been there. So that this will go say look who said too much. Who say anything so good about this government. Any say mean that admin them post them. Then make I talk to me and copy admin them for delete them. Now look all they share the bad news now. Who die the money, now then they fly. Yeah, now then they fly, they get people they overseas, and they get their picking they abroad. And then they eat find money, and then they ride in Egypt and get big houses and they build mansions. Me na ordinary man. Yeah, we now suffer Davis, we don't talk suffer Johnson. We dey tell what defend the government, but the government defend we. So they pull all thing now.
We are in Pendembo, the headquarters of Upper Bambara Chiefdom, and today is the elections for the section chieftaincy in Anyahun section, which headquarters Pendembo. As you could see, this is the hallmark of democracy. There are no throwing of stones, no fighting. It's peaceful here, it's quiet here. The people are all just waiting for their opportunity to vote. We will talk about democracy, we will talk about the rights to vote. Now in the Anyahun section, people in the Anyahun section, now that they demonstrate today. We can talk say, the Mende people then peaceful. Now we demonstrate here today. As you can see all this crowd, nobody know there where they fight anybody, nobody know there where they cause anybody. Everybody they at peace. Then they wait for their names and for make them count it. Make them call, make them go vote. So at the end of the day, this now we they do. Now Upper Bambara Chiefdom, Anyahun section, we know the fight, no cost no they are. It's very peaceful now. We can say Mende man them peaceful. This now one hallmark of the Mende man being peaceful. Now election day now, but as you can see, the people they all there quietly. Nobody know the threats, nobody know the cause. This now is the hallmark of democracy. Everybody get their own candidate, but at the end of the day, they wait quietly, then go vote. So Anyahun section, Upper Bambara Chiefdom, then they send the message to Sierra Leone that we can do election without not get for faith. That we can do election when they together. Now we people then they demonstrate now Upper Bambara Chiefdom today. Now the headquarter town of Pendembo, we say in Anyahun section day. As we now they see, it's very peaceful. Everybody just sit down, they wait for the time for make them vote. So we just want for appeal to everybody, we want for appeal to the country that now so democracy for day. It will be peaceful. Everybody get their own candidate, but at the end of the day, it's peaceful. Everybody wait for their turn, wait their turn reach, then call them, then go vote. So we really pleased. Some of you we don't come out from abroad. We don't can join with brother and sisters them. As soon as you see everybody sit down, fet no dey out. This now the hallmark we can say Mende man peaceful. This now one of the things that we Mende man can do right. We all sit down, we dey wait for that 10 day for go vote. So this now a shining example where we now for take from Anyahun section.
All right. Thank you very much. That video we think say irrelevant because of the topic we're about to get into. Anyahun section, Pendembo, Upper Bambara Chiefdom. I can claim that place they say Nami your home too. And also that I'm very proud of me people there. I say me people them, even though I'm a Creole boy, but I see myself as one of them. Because I grew up. I go elementary school, I go high school, Pendembo in the 60s. My papa and my grandpa, then they Pendembo, Anyahun section for over 30 or 40 years, you know. So this place is as much home for me. And then people and they where I see so they are as much of me people as anybody else. So I'm extremely proud of them that they're being used as a shining example as to how civilized people them for conduct themselves. I also civilized, you know, just for being educated. There are a lot of uncivilized educated people. You just get for just understand the basic rule of civility, of decency, regardless of how far you go in school or what area of the country, because there's certain basic understanding about human relations that we for treat each other with respect, you know, with kindness. And if we see ourselves in that light, we're not going to go knock somebody over the head for vote. Just go and cast your vote. Now I make you get a piece of paper. So I'm glad Pendembo is being shown and being used as an example of how the rest of the country for behave themselves. And I think this is supposed to be if the commissioner of the electoral commissioner I wish somebody can bring this to your attention and in group. If they don't see that, make them use that as an illustration, as a demonstration to others that this is how we expect everybody to behave. Go quietly, whatever the procedure is, follow it, cast your vote, and leave. So I'm very proud of Mepenembu people then, because I'm from there. I grew up there. I know the culture, I know the people, and so I am as much part of them as anyone else. You don't necessarily get for be aiming day, because I'm well acquainted with the culture there, and I grew up with that, and I get part of it. So I'm very proud of my people then. That said, I pass on over to my co-host.
Very good, Mr. Shilon. And again, once more, I will tell the people in Pendembu, thumbs up. And it lead me now to the main issues that we can discuss this week. This week, we see a landmark case. Now, Sierra Leone, although the second time this, but the first one will be different, will have been the case of the Vice President Sam Sumana. And today we're not going to talk about that. But this one actually border on constitution in terms of we get rules, we get laws, and we will go into them in day because the election is guided by the constitution. We get election laws, we get information we need before election, and the process. So there we too they can talk about. Now for take people they like to a journey. Because the PR system, which is in court, we will all wait for judgment. We're not going into detail. Then there will be the second part. We will wait after the court document. Then we will discuss the issue. But today, one can see how all these things happen. Because there's a connection between census and election. And one can show the relationship. But also census not just for election. And today we will talk about people that will comment on that. Waiting at census. Census, now where country, now in different location, and for see almost people in a village, almost people in a district, almost people in a town, and then go help towards development. So we need to bring the link between this process. So today we'll talk about first the census. We'll begin for comments, why they happen. Then we'll talk about the election laws them. We're going to lead us to how we come back to this proportional representation. And we then examine the law and constitutionality. Now look at census. In England, they say it's as old as the Doomsday Book, which time ago. Even in the Bible, there was a time when Mary and Joseph, the parents of Jesus, they began for go let and count them. So not a modern day phenomenon. But now look, Salone. We don't come up far. The first census we'll get in a Salone, now 1802. But then they, now for the colony, because you know that with previous administration, we get the colony and the protectorate. The colony, now they mostly the freed slaves then settle, where they intermingle with the people that have been there around, the Bulon people and the Timni people. So we don't get census from 1802. But now let's look about this modern census what they talk about. The first census we'll get in 1963, November. The next census in December 1974. What you know how they bring this up for see the trend is between a 10 and 11 year period. Then we get another one in December 1985. Then we get one in 2004. Then the previous one was in 2015. Where the law, who did they collect census? The census will get an organization where they call statistical. when are they responsible, and we get it 2002. I will repeat again, Statistics Act 2002. We say Statistics Sierra Leone under Section 10, subsection 2, they get for supervise, manage a national population census. Now, we don't call them population and housing census. Although, again, we focus more on the population side for obvious reason. The housing side, we know they look at them because we don't get Ministry of Housing and Salone. You know, one time in there under after independence, we've been getting ministry called Ministry of Housing Planning. But now the modern day equivalent of that, the Ministry of National and Economic Development. So the law say now every 10 years we forget census. But also, it also make a provision say the president, in a listing below the president, and the user, I come back to Tina where they talk about executive power, can call a census at a prescribed time where they go determine. So when they decide for do the census, they tell we say na midterm census. So people let me grumble. They say, but we not use forget census midterm. This is not first thing. Because the Statistics Sierra Leone, the statistician general where they in charge, Professor Malam Sanko, yes, in get reason why he want to do the census after he don't consult with the government. And the reason why he said they want show, look at the changes in population distribution, then shift. Because remember, say around them period, then they will be get first na be Ebola, then we can't get COVID. With COVID, people let me move around, and also they will get for the distribute money to people them who are affected. Then the Ministry of Development and Economic Planning we get the midterm development plan. So they say, well, that plan there now we go use now these census figures for show how we go get development. In other words, places that we don't get concentration of population, then get demand for health facilities, then get demand for more schools, then get demand for other things like better roads, water supply, electricity. That is good. We thank the government for that. But at the first and this, we they get midterm census. I go repeat, it is not illegal. Because the law say the president can call them. And the statistician general say, well, the 2015 census, the one before that, because if we go by that, the next census will be 2025. But I say no, that census itself, the figure they not be kuno, because we get boku argument. Okay, now that census they use when they create Karine and Falaba district. Talk about unequal distribution of, and the census now we will use modern system. You know, we will use electoral system. We will come. But now, waiting at the relationship between the census and the present draw who they get as we prepare for the election. The opposition be say, this census way now they do so. Not saying now I use now for change the rules of the game for the election. Because when they get census, Statistics Sierra Leone go use that figure there in disposal of the Electoral Commission. And the Electoral Commission, now then they use that figure there for look at the different constituencies, the number of constituencies and the number of people in per constituency. But government say no. Not to that, not them purpose. The Minister of Economic Development come, he talk, say, bring a man I got a lot of respect for. He talk about the census. But what's happened? The opposition still adamant So they call for a boycott. They call say let them not go count people. I hope say the technical team will play the video now where the leader of the opposition at Parliament, Honorable Cherno Maju, been making points. So not in the opposition case. Because here we want a balanced view. We don't talk about the government in their own case, the positivity, how census, they help with development. Now let's look at what the opposition say, what do themselves say, as Englishman can say they smell a rat. If the technical team can play that for me, then they go help with viewers for let them know this whole thing.
But one thing I noticed throughout the 5 days is that colleagues on the other side have spent all of their time in debating statement of a president who is now former, rather than debating very ideas that were delivered.
In name na Honorable Cherno Ramadan Majuba, the leader of the main opposition APC party at the Salone Parliament, and also even take the floor at the well of Parliament Monday, May 30, 2022, for roundup from the opposition side, the debate for Seka President Bio in state opening speech, where he make na Parliament this bientem.
Mr. Speaker, I will take you to page 2 of the President's speech. Paragraph 7. The President is very, very smart, very, very brilliant, very, very intelligent. Line 3. Page 2, paragraph 7. When he was talking about the census, he used the word credible before data. The President is expecting the credible data. Very intelligent, very smart. But I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that the way the census started, it ended worse than the way it started. Data is far from credible. Yes, far from credible, Mr. Speaker.
The leader of the main opposition APC party talk about the midterm population and housing census, which in result just come out the next day, Tuesday, May 31st, 2022. As Honorable Ba not been waste time for condemn this census information and serve the results, we don't come out now, as he say, not a true results but the Salone population, and people not for believe them. Honorable Ba continue for give reason them as to why he say people not for take the census result serious, as it first begin with the procedure we get for do with the law with statistics alone used for start the census process, where it say get bought even before then take the documents na Parliament April 19, and even after that all the process them we then start with like the mapping of the host them and area them for the census where Parliament not been agreed for yet, and the same information then used for get the census results.
Mr. Speaker, like the other member from Bombali alluded this morning when he was talking about statistics, he said statistics has not been doing justice to this government. I share that perception, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we all know what transpired on the 19th of April last year at the Bintumani. So I will not go into history, but all I want to tell this House, and by extension the public, is that all what Statistics Salone had done before the 19th of April, 21 days after the 19th of April, Mr. Speaker, are we together?
Absolutely.
This is very important, Mr. Speaker.
I'm multitasking.
Mr. Speaker, all what Statistics Salone did by way of the census before the 19th of April last year was never annulled. Whether it was cartography, whether it was mapping, that was before the 19th of April. And 21 days after the 19th of April, which quote unquote, some are claiming made the instrument legitimate, they just blended the negative and the positive. And you know what the answer is? Negative plus positive. Negative. So it is illegal, Mr. Speaker. Simple mathematics. Simple mathematics.
One other reason we make the leader of opposition at the Salone Parliament, Honorable Ba, say people not for believe the census result and that the people we suppose for take part in the census, when a Salone people, plenty of them not been agreed for take part in the census.
Mr. Speaker, I also tell you with authority that the census, the midterm census, was meant for population and housing, and it was dubbed the People's Census. Mr. Speaker, Statistics Leone and others who are supporting them claimed that as a result of what transpired within that period, people did not participate. So if it's People's Census and they refuse to participate, how can it be a census? How can it be a census?
Apart from the people, we not been want to make Statistics Salone count them for the census. But the leader of opposition talk with authority, say even Statistics Salone not been reached na plenty host them for count people, because plenty host them where you go, you not go see any mark for sure say Statistics Salone been reached there for count people.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure if I go to now. It is evidently clear that when you do housing and population census, whichever premise you visit, you must leave a mark. It is strike law. You must leave a mark. Go around the city of Freetown, identify where the marks are. Nowhere. Nowhere. Mr. Speaker, I will tell you, at least 8 out of every 10 in the Western area you talk to, they will tell you SO2, nobody not going to miss. And this is not just for locals, eh? Even MPs on that side, you have to be careful because your people are watching. They are listening. Yes. They know that they were not counted. And even those who were recruited, some of them still have their palm tops with them. So how did they calculate the figures when the palm tops are not in statistics? They are yet to pay people. The numerators still have their palm tops. So where did you get the data from? Oh, from space.
For sake of all them reason them make the leader of the main opposition at the Salone Parliament, Honorable Cherno Ramadan Majuba, say the census result we just come out na do, no real, and that people not for believe them as one way credible. For Salone Parliament, I on Gla TV Online. Mina Abdullah Gla, the report.
Well, we found them in another area, the opposition waiting and see about us. But then there's a link between the census figures here and what they plan for the election. So before we go down with it, let us get some comments from other people then. Because I don't talk about the government. The government mean well. They talk why they need the census, the relationship to development, and all that in there. But they will get an organization as Salone and called IGR, Institute for Government Reform, which have been doing a report. And talk say they not see no reason why would they spend $20 million for do census within 7 years. Remember say the census na be every 10 years. But this midterm census na 7 years after the last census. And let's take within Institute for Government Reform say. They say the only reason why we they forced for do this census, not to me say, they say the only thing formation of constituencies and amassing vote at the expense of laying a solid block for the population. That's what you say. We go back to the 2015 census. The opposition will say, why they do them? That's in the government department, the mini opposition. They say, why they do them? Now, because the opposition want to create more seats. Now, make sure they create constituency in Akarine and Falaba. They want to say, that census the way they mean do. It disenfranchise some people because they say their own part. Society will get more votes, more registered voters, but less transparency. So the reason why them tell we say for the census, we now for development plan primarily, distribution of resources. From what you don't can see now, this census figures the authenticity, the accuracy, and everything now lead to the situation we don't get now, where then challenge them and bring this PR system. So let's see if my co-presenter get anything for say based on what me on analysis so I don't do, you go give legal view, and from the report we get in Parliament on the opposition side. So we don't present the government, we don't present the opposition side. Because we want to give a fair. Yeah.
Thank you very much,
Yes,
Mr. Mengo. Thank you so much. Now, let me just take a slightly different approach to this, even the justification going back to the establishment of the two new districts using population as a basis to establish new districts. First, it's unreasonable. Secondly, it was unnecessary. An increase in population, like you say, now the whole idea about the census primarily, or one of the main ideas, that for distribution of resources, would they do the census for know when money has to be distributed, or resources, primarily money has to be distributed, that all areas now will get equal, because some areas that are more populous go get more funding for economic development and economic and social development than other areas that are less populated. That is the main goal. Okay, not to primarily for election purpose. But you see, we therefore call the shots as we see them. APC, they were disingenuous, I'm sorry. In other words, they didn't give the real reason why they take undue advantage of whatever reason they give for try for add two districts to the situation, because it give them political advantage. I mean, plain and simple. Because they didn't have to add two districts to the 12 districts they will get. If population increase in the area they just have to allocate more resources to the areas there. With Koinadugu being the same. It didn't have to be broken or split up. Let me give you an example. Because the same principle applies in this country and other country. California, I believe, is the most populous state in the country. Okay? No, well, of course, it will never happen here. But no government will say, because California, the increase in population by 7 million, therefore California, because of the increase in population, another state has to be established, so as to, because they get for allocate fund. You just give the state, they will get this density or increase in population, more apportionment or more resources than others. So APC now then start this problem. And we've got to call it like it is, because laws are being passed for the wrong reason, for give political advantage over others, or of one party over the other, not in what is in the best interest of the country. And it's not like APC did not know what they were doing. They knew that. That was a bad precedent. They knew they could only get away with that if they continue for them in power. And so, because what should stop any other party with any kind of power for playing the same game? And the victim, not the country. So that reason the way the APC then begin for even establish two new districts because of increase in population. That is not, I don't think that would have met constitutional muster. If SAPP, when they were in the opposition, had gone to court and object or oppose the establishment of them two parties, then a very serious-minded Supreme Court will have nullified that expansion there, or that additional increase in the districts, because without going into the pros and cons, whether it was even necessary, I'm just trying to stick strictly with the law and the reason I was given. So it was bad law or bad precedent to begin with. SAPP were in kind of power, and this is the irony about the whole thing. And it appears to me, in my humble opinion, because of the bad law where exists in the books, because of the, I think, misunderstanding of what a constitution is all about, SAPP now, because the constitution does say the president can consult with the commissioner or the electoral commission, and then the electoral commissioner, in consultation with the president, can make some decision will go affect the outcome of the voting. Not a bad law. First of all, it is constitutionally required that census should be 10 years. Period. The method or methodology or the manner in which that was probably prescribed by statute, but it is there that there shall be census every 10 years. What made it improper, or even to some extent could be referred to as illegal, Parliament turned around and passed an act allowing, in the discretion of the president, in consultation with the electoral commissioner, for exercise the right of the midterm census. That should not happen. No
well,
act.
just a correction, Mr. Shilon, is the Statistician General. Because the Statistics General now is responsible.
The Statistic General. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Statistic General. But there should have been no law passed by Parliament wherefore contradict the express mandate of 10-year elections. 10-year statistics for the country. So this midterm statistic where Parliament approve is illegal. It's unconstitutional. It should have been challenged. Because no act can contradict the prescribed or the prescription of a constitution. You can't do that. So I don't even call it a conflict in laws, because nothing should conflict with the constitution. You either comply with the requirement of the constitution or it's not good law. So the midterm act, the act will control midterm census. I think that was done in poor taste, and I think under proper scrutiny should not have been able to survive constitutional challenge. But it did because nobody took issue with that midterm aspect there. So these are some of the things that, and again, I welcome disagreement, because they say reasonable minds can differ. So if mere analysis or understanding of what I'm saying or of what the law is wrong, I welcome others to call in. That's why we invite people in, because we all want to gain ideas from others. But I'm telling you, the law governing the midterm census was an illegal law. Illegal in the sense that it violates the Constitution, and what the opposition should have done then was to go to court and get an injunction not allowing Statistics Sierra Leone for even enforce whatever they were coming up with, but it went unchallenged. So there is a lot of
responsibility. Let me play the devil's advocate.
Yes, sir.
So two issues are mentioned.
Okay.
One, the tenure for the census. Yes, the primary one at the Constitution in 1991. The one where prescribed the midterm census is a secondary legislation to the Constitution, when at the Statistics Act 2002, we mention, right, the tenure, but there are so many other things. The same, like this issue of PR, where they discuss, we give the executive, in the form of the president, to call a midterm, a census at a prescribed time if he so wish. As somebody who's been involved in drafting laws, now that makes, so when you draft law, you get a schedule at the back of the law. That schedule then and they refer to what was the original intent of that 10-year census. To explain why you decide now for, say, the president, if he wish, forget a midterm census, and under which circumstances he forget a midterm census. So what we have in Sierra Leone, we have the constitution, which was 1991, the primary legislation. We get the secondary legislation, where we refer to them, but it is often this disconnect between the primary legislation, which is the constitution, and subsequent law. When they debate them, people to the original constitution and say, okay, if it's a clarification or extension of the original law, let's determine the circumstance of which. And again, I go with you. Enough for left at the discretion of one man, president, as the executive, for direct and say, well, just like how the same argument about the PR system for, say, the president, if he so wish. And let's take people and then why that happened. We come back to the call of constitutional review. Remember, we moved from a one-party constitution in 1978, to the 1991 multi-party constitution. At the time, the president, I think, said to me, force him, because the Cold War be not done. All the country and they talk about democratization, especially with people the way they fund, we will get for talk about them and their role in another program, especially when it comes to how then they can monitor election and how they pay for election and how then they determine who that they will be. So what they did in 1991, have put so much powers in the where affect the legislature. For instance, the president now they appoints the clerk of parliament. The same way now we then get that subsequent law saying a president can decide, say, will they use proportional representation instead of first past the post holder use. So these are the issues at hand. And then controversies here now lead to present situation where they so. So as we say this in a timeline, we don't set the pace. How this census come and watching at the relationship between the census figures and preparation for election. A lot of members say, when we go to the next one, which is the election preparation, we get from members, there are 3 institutions involved in all this. And this idea where we don't talk beaucoup time, so many institutions and how then they work together. Because you get the National Commission of Registration. We will talk about that too. They talk about the Election Act, NACRA, because then they be bringing controversy. We get the Electoral Commission of Sierra Leone. We get Statistics Sierra Leone. All them 3 institutions and they get role for play, especially in determining who scarce or draw will get about PR first past the post. So, Mr. Shilon, that Namio roundup, if you've seen, I think so we can take the next step because it's not a timeline. Because it starts from the constitution, from the census. Then now we can talk about the next way follow, right? When are the amendment of election laws and that relationship. So over to you, any addition before we move to the next one. Because we take people into
No, I have none.
Yes,
So keep going.
okay, yes. Now, after this census figure, the draw, then they will get the figure then. But how it links to election? And I take one so I can clarify. Because now the census figures, the distribution of population, now the Electoral Commission for do what they call boundary delimitation. What does that mean? already we get about 130 seats in the parliament, right?
Something.
So
Yeah.
in a way now, when you don't get your census figure, if there's a change in population distribution and shift, you get for do you define your constitution there, your constituency, now they call boundary delimitation, right? So which means some area will get more constituency, some will get less, which was what this census portrayed according to the result. Because one of the things that when people comment when we get the result, there was a lot of argument when I say, okay, Kenema district, not Kenema town, let's clarify that, was the most populous area. Say you even get more population than Freetown, the western region. Yeah, which means if they want to do this boundary delimitation, Freetown, the western region, will get less seats because according to them, there has been action, because that's what it seems in the population of the western region, but an increase in the population of Kenema district in the eastern region. So the region and they will get more constituency. Then the other area them, then will get less according to the census figures. So that is the issue. So that's the relationship. But again, La put one law where they ignore. And we'll come to that. Because even when you do boundary delimitation, what did the law say? The law clearly say if you don't do them boundary delimitation day, it is under section 38(5), where the boundaries of any constituency are altered in accordance with the provision, their constitution they will create, they know they come into effect until the dissolution of parliament, and it became in the next parliament. Until we now say, now because we not get up-to-date constituency, I make one go into PR system, then it's against that law in parliament. Because even if they do the boundary delimitation, where the Electoral Commission will not be able to do, a give reason, if we be time, then constituency they not apply until the next election. It is in the law. And then they bring the Kuskas for parliament on PR. But then the next stage, we don't start part. Right? Let's say we go up line. We don't cover up to Mashaka. We're at the census. Now we can't take out from Mashaka to mile 91. Also try for review the electoral laws. And before we go into that, we can ask the technical team for how we as they know for play another video debate for the electoral laws, then we will comment on that. So we're then at the next stage of the journey now.
Mr. Speaker, honorable members, it is necessary and timely that the bill entitled Public Elections Act 2022 be read, for it provides for the following reasons.
Tuesday, June 21, 2022, the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Mohamed Lamin Tarawali, been tabled at the Well of Parliament the bill we named the Public Elections Act. We want for give more strength to law them. We been on day we get for do with how the Electoral Commission of Salone, ECSL, for conduct election them na the country.
A. Continuation functions and proceedings of the Electoral Commission, including the Executive Secretary and other staff of the Electoral Commission. B. Registration of voters the division of Sierra Leone into wards, eligibility to register and to vote, the disqualification and period for registration of voters.
But as all this they be, this bill bring come different issue them. We get for choke like bona truth. Like one, the issue of dual citizenship. When our people we get two country them or to seem for now able for be MP them or even president. Two, the proportional representation or PR system of representation. We mean say, if this law pass, people not get for vote for MP them again, but na political party them get for the pick people with them want and send them go na parliament for represent constituency them. This plus other issue them, they inside this bill. Now, some MP them we been get chance for debate this bill Tuesday, fed hard for defend more the issue we get for do with the PR system of representation. We for replace the constituency system we will now know for MP them.
I have also taken my time to reminisce those days that this country practiced the district block system. I will say proudly that those were the peaceful days of this country. They were the peaceful days of this country. The district block system, I will say, has tremendous peaceful advantages. And it also has some huge economic advantages. Mr. Speaker, if we are to adopt the district block system, firstly, one of its advantages is it will prevent us from going into by-elections. When you come to the PR system, out of research, 92 countries, including very established democracies all over the globe, are practicing the PR system, including Brazil, Japan, South Africa in the African continent, Togo, Burkina Faso in the sub-region. And these countries, Mr. Speaker, honorable members, have taught us something worth emulating. When you look at the PR system in these other jurisdictions I've named, it gives minority parties the opportunity to be represented, and even independent candidates.
But waiting not been surprised people too much. Now with the APC MP them not been say anything but this bill, but the leader of opposition, Honorable Cherno Ramadan Majuba, been get for request for the soft copy of this bill.
It's just a reminder that you urge the minister, NEC, or ECSL to ensure that latest by tomorrow we have access to the soft copies of this bill. Please, I am pleading with you in their presence.
Yeah. But why the opposition side not been agree for debate this bill?
We want to make it very clear since Monday say now that the first thing that they will receive the documents then, and considering the sensitive nature of the Public Elections Act and in the importance, it's good for them we read them, understand them before we debate. Because we debate just for myself, but for the people that also they represent. We not they represent themselves in the House of Parliament, but the people that we elect from Ekokanaya. We'll be request for the soft copy, and NEC don't make the soft copy available. We said in turn also the distributor to the public, so that at the end of the day, whatever we're talking about Parliament will be consistent with their dreams and aspirations, what they expect me for do, because majority represent.
One other thing we clear now that the main opposition smell rank by the section we get for do with the PR system of representation and already for support them. But why? Honorable Cherno Ramadan Majuba again.
We have plenty things that we not believe is good for Salone. But the first and perhaps the most important, when you kind of parliament now for represent people under the PR system, you know they represent people, you don't represent your political party. Because also the people that determine whether they can represent them, the parties in the same list. And in modern day democracy, it's always good for you to be a representative of the people rather than your party. The party will control you, and the people will not be where you represent not go able to get any voice and say. They will just go vote for the political parties.
The leader of opposition, Honorable Ba, carry on for say although Salone at some point practiced the PR system, but this not been work fine for portray real democracy. We been return again to one man, one constituency system with plenty serious democracy them they go with.
Yes, in 1996 and in 2002, we do the PR systems, but we also will effect war, not to all sides of the country be able for access. And because we want to make sure say we get civilian administrations moving away from the military form of governance, and that will make the people at that point in time they see sense and reason for me to go through the PR system. If it will succeed, the very people that we practice them in 2002, we introduce them under the President Amatijan Kama administration, not be for see reason for go back to the constituencies. But because they've been also the best form of representation, they just use them in 2002 for to make sure say people then get civilians the way they represent them. And in 2007, after the war being done, they go back to the system where they believe say the real democracy and real representation.
Honorable Ba go before for even knock the argument of the ruling party MP them. We say the PR system will reduce violence and make government not spend plenty on election.
We our system not fail me. Following the talk say a lot of violence, it gets a lot of cost implications. Democracy, we have been told, is not cheap. Otherwise, not for the new elections. But for the security, it is a shame that we use that day today as an excuse. We get institutions, we get responsibility for maintaining law and order. We get when they pay for providing security for lives and property. So if we they say we run away from real democracy and maybe try to introduce PR just because of security reasons, then we don't need for the pay with security sectors. Then we waste money by paying them people, then we pay them for provide security. Let them provide security.
The leader of opposition gets strong believing say this bill go meet up tough time na parliament because even SLPP MP them get for vote against them. We look how a plan for pull the people, not for vote for them MP them again, and go just give power to political party them for pick any person from the street for represent them na parliament.
Blah, not forget, we don't talk from the inception. So the whole agenda of census and PR now for Geomanda during the elections. They're not doing them because it's good for democracy, but because they believe it will be an easy way for me to get more seats in parliament. But I will tell you, they could be disappointed because the bill, not just stiff resistance it will face, when we go ready for votes, through the secret ballot audit, because whenever certain decisions are highly contentious and they therefore do with individual members then security back in the constituencies, always the speaker in prudence will make sure say voting by secret. And when we go vote, you will see say people right across the political spectrum, the C4C, MGC, SLPP, Paramount Chiefs, and even the independent will vote against the PR system.
This bill still then at the table of parliament and MP them, especially at the opposition APC, still the pick sense as to how they go able kick na do this section. We want to pull the power for elect MP them from the people them and give them to political party them. For Salone Parliament, I on Gla TV Online. Mina Abdullah Gla the reports.
Well, me family them in all those see the debates. Both sides. I'll make one short comment because me and a man with a parliamentary background, not as a parliamentarian, but somebody who work at the British Parliament and advise other parliamentarians. Parliament rules and procedures. If you now watch the video, the opposition and me say debate the bill. Why they not debate the bill at the time wait? Now because they not been getting soft copy. Right. So let's look at procedure. Who are responsible for draft bills? Who are they are and how they reach the public? Normally, to the general office, the law officers department, now they can get a section law as with the draft bill. And they discuss in a parliament, in a cabinet approval. he now instructs the Attorney General for draft the bill. When the bill, they can go back to cabinet. Cabinet say we agree. Then they gazette them. Then they gazette them where everybody go get access to that gazette. And then do a schedule because we want to discuss the bill. They get a committee for government business, a business committee where they talk about the thing that they discuss in the parliament. So they agree say on so dates we discuss the bill. And before they do that, all MP for them notify, then for them make sure say they get seized. So there is a procedural breach, lapses, so that they process that. Well, I hold on my thoughts for that and go back. We'll go back to the electoral debate and like Chilon for comment on what you take on the view on some of the country.
Okay. Well, first of all, the procedure being adopted, the current procedure. Well, first of all, listening to the debate, I think the opposition get the better of the argument. They get more persuasive points than the opposition. Second of all, I think there's some justification. The leader of the opposition, say, well, he accused the other side or the Attorney General's office of deceit, that they bring the instrument up at a time where we not give them enough time for even debate them, and they were not giving copies, and there was objection by the government side or the party in power for giving sufficient time. Well, this to me indicates they were not doing what they were doing in good faith. They were not doing what they knew was not in the best interest of the country. But procedurally, as we see the argument here, again, for me, your humble opinion, you see the flaws in the system, all of which will get amended. I personally don't think the Attorney General's office should be involved in drafting. I think they should be involved in reviewing what has been drafted. I think Parliament itself, being a body all by itself, supposedly independent on the books from the other arms of government, and the Attorney General being part of the executive, it looked kind of inconsistent that the executive now then go get draftsman for draft laws for Parliament. Parliament get the ability for get their own legal department and get their own lawyers and hire their own draftsmen. Now, for purposes of efficiency, it may not be unreasonable for acts when a draft has been presented for submission to the AG's office for a matter of review or for watch whether there are inconsistencies or whether there are some constitutional flaws. That to me would be a more reasonable way. But the current practice itself, is a contradiction in itself. Because the AG's office, where they draft the law, not part of the executive, which is supposedly should be completely detached, delinked from Parliament. And then this procedure of the Attorney General, who is not an elected official, goes to Parliament and presents some statutory instrument. That, to me, is a bit questionable. Even if that's how we inherit them. Is that the most efficient way? Does it not contradict the division of and the independence of all the branches of government? So me see problem with that to start with. And all this cumulatively, it lead to the problem what would they get? We need for set some real efficient way of doing things, because I do not understand. Another thing is, how can the president, supposedly head of the executive, that is supposedly independent from the legislature, appoint the clerk of parliament? I mean, it's hard for me to believe that these rules were really thought out, or if they were, the people didn't know what they were doing. They obviously knew what they were doing, But this, at the end of the day, does not help the country. It does not prevent controversy. It leads to nothing but problem down the line. That is a recipe for disaster with the current procedure. And I think one of our own problem, we know they try for learn from a mistake and try for improve. And until a political party come into power, we'll go begin for stop this vicious cycle of inefficiency, mediocrity, retrogression. We will keep making the same mistake. And the other thing about the argument with the PR system, why will we want the political parties, instead of the people electing their representative, if the argument has been made that it will be the representative or the politicians or the political party imposing representatives in parliament, which will be quite contrary to every principle of democracy, why are we pushing the PR system if that would be one of the effects if that goes into law? Isn't that adding more injury to the
Yes,
already?
Mr. Sheeran, hold it up now. Let's ask our technical team if there are any caller on the line, any comments from our Facebook page where people can go respond, because these two are interactive.
I'm glad you bring that up. I wanted each time it will cross my mind to remind the audience that they are free to call.
Yeah,
so I'm glad you.
Call on the technical team. Can we have any caller now?
Now we can proceed. We can proceed. There are no callers on the queue.
Okay, that's fine. Now we don't talk about them procedure today. Let's look at the thing that when they debate the electoral bill, because after the opposition actually make that point, they may give them time where they circulate the bill to them and can debate them. And there were some real controversial issues whilst they debate the bill. Then I will highlight the issue then followed up by the bill, it don't approve, it don't become an act, and point out some other serious anomalies within this act, because it involves a lot of things then. Yeah. So when they were debating the bill, one of the most controversial things when they talk about now the use of the NIN, the NIN, which is the National Identification Number, with Dande 9 for produce 9 at the National Commission for Registration and Deposition, that unique identification number for every Sierra Leonean. Although me they abroad, but I was fortunate enough to tell a good tongue that they tell them when they do registration. I think we have one person on the line. Can we get in touch with that person?
Yeah, hello caller. What's your name? What's the call from? Hello caller.
This one
caller. Okay, Abdul, welcome. Go ahead. What's your question?
Yeah, I follow the program attentively, and I really don't elucidate on the issues, and I don't learn a lot from them. But you, on our two, I'm on the point here. I want to say the reason for this debacle with this now emanates from the 2015 census, with the two constituencies and created. But that's not lead to that. If then two constituencies they are not being created, I don't think say something like this may arise. But that's not the genesis of all which we go through so. And as I always say from time immemorial, that this 1991 constitution, it need a thorough review. Unless and until the politicians as well as we the people we ready or take a U-turn, then we revisit the old document and accept within late Justice Cowan may don't present. Because it's 1991 constitution, as I'd always say, is shrouded in secrecy. Now, a replica of the 1978 one-party constitution. And the 1978 one-party constitution, when a one party, it just replicates the 1991 new by making it a multi-party democracy, then be a multi-party democracy outwardly, but inwardly, now a one-party authoritarian or despotic constitution. Now, so it look like when you read everything at the 1991 constitution. So as a result, each of the parties, the way they counter power, based on the lacunas, the way they know the constitution, then they use that at their own advantage. So now the reason that make way we don't find ourselves so today, then they hurt the people more than satisfy themselves when the politicians. Because anyone we can have power, they use the constitution, the gaps the way they did, because now the one party constitution, they shroud in a multi-party group at their own advantage. When the people they suffer. So now that's the current crisis where we don't find ourselves in this so they like today. How we forget out of this? Because if you look what we don't pass, when they create them to districts and they then do one for their own political advantage. Because they will get more constituencies and more members of parliament. Then the current government now, they try to say, okay, we want to right the wrongs of yesterday. But again, then they foresee that is hypothetically they see and say, well, if we go into this PR system, it go favor we because we will get votes all sides. So it is really murky the situation we don't find ourselves. This shenanigans, as always they say, and chicanery within this 1991 constitution, we need for the visitor hook, line, and thinker from the first page to the last page. Let we get something that will benefit the nation for posterity. So anyone we can have power, they no say you go come use that constitution for benefit the people instead of benefiting themselves. But that's not what I say I get for Colombo. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Mr. Mengo, hold your thought. Let me take another caller.
Yeah.
Hello, caller. What's your name?
Okay.
And we send the call from.
Good evening again. This is Fode Mustafa from Leicester.
Hi, Mr. Fode. Long time. Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
The same to this after Sharon and the rest of the team.
Okay.
You see this thing, I don't know if they follow news now, Salone. Like me, I follow news from to today no more. I follow news all now. The civil society them and the journalists them put all this confusion. First of all, when they make the census way pass, now them like Andrew Lavalley and the other man, I mean Ibrahim Tommy, or they call themselves and get some names then. And then first talk say these statistics is not correct that are 2015. Then people have failed for compare the previous statistics where they don't hold us alone, where they show the population is not significantly changed. We are not saying it's perfect, but you go look at the trend. Like the northern province had always been around 35%. The south and east has only been around 22, 23%. That is the statistics we presented in 2015. So if the civil society then begin talk say, oh, this is not fine, so oh, this they don't make and so oh, well, to the worst of it, and Eskuruma can make two provinces them, na in side, we make them confirm. Say, see what you tell now, they are not correct. Now make now make provinces them or districts and na in side them. So now the other people in back sit down, they look at the other 10 back, like you put your attention back. Now more for now the way you organize this at a town hall. Now put this na the president. Now say Mr. President, you know think say PR will be an issue for make you bring up, because if you look like PR, it will be like you will get sit in a free tongue. Because if you look, it will get like if you get 30%, 35% vote, they not get no seat. It not make sense. So now go back from that day where it tell now any president talk say, well, he go talk to the parliament, other people in contact. That's where it all started. So now the president now make it count this census now because he look for which way he count the PR. One time we don't listen to one of the man then when I SLP man, I talk say he say he no say this thing is for NPAN PR because the opposition no go grip at this midterm and the government back no go allow accept the past results. So from that time, the 90s PR thing sit down. So the government just they walk about towards this PR. All this argument when they talk say, oh, they do am so, they do am so. This talk we don't begin in July. We then come to that bill. Now in that talk begin. So all for go and talk and say, oh, we're not able to make constituency them. Now we go out PR. Are we that stupid? Say we don't ready the discussion now. They don't talk say that they pull them for the discussion. They don't talk them over and over and over. Now they don't come put them back say na PR or we're not able to make constituency. This is conspicuous. We saw it coming. Everybody knows say this is where we are going. And then they can't talk say, oh, well, we because of this, because of this. So I just want to make I remind people and say it's not a coincidence. And we'll put the blame back squarely on civil society them, or we are saying Salone will ever get correct figures because of the way the situation, the country, the illiteracy and other things. But make we look at the trend of say, if they say this like the northern province, when we talk, then we hammer say the northern province passed. It was still 35% compared to the SLPP census when they make 2004. Why you talk say this they don't manipulate figures? So I just want to make we see which side this year come out. The one the way not honest, way they cow things the way they get intention them. Either it be civil society or what, either it be journalists. I make I call names them. People I read them from them, not them. I just my time don't know what I count when I'm back to one other thing. If Tommy and the caller say Tommy and the other guy Laval don't go sit down back na radio. Now in them talk say the other district them like the country, the constituencies them, then they get less votes, and them not they get the other one they get 20,000 per how they call it, parliamentarian. The other one they get like 6,000, which is not correct. These guys are responsible. When he pass back, do a lot. I just laugh. Then I not get for call again. When he pass back, they get one other thing where they go talk. They say the parliamentary votes now 44% now APC get, and the SLPP get 43.something%. How the citizen will be 68 to 49? Now I take them back say because I engage them on private discussion. Now I say when they say when they say constituency, you can beat somebody now by one vote. If you beat them by one vote all around the country, you win all the seats. No matter say that man get 49.9%, you get 50 point something%. You are going to win all the seats. But these guys have intentions. Why then bring up this kind of discussion? I make I just say I bring my mind back to which I've done the follow. Thank you very much for giving me the chance.
Oh,
Thank you very much, Mr.
yeah,
Fode.
thank you, caller. They will not get much time now. Again, we will continue, but as again, follow me thoughts. We'll talk about. I want to make one important point. When we talk about the debate for the electoral laws, then one they talk about national identification number, then we want to make it mandatory. Debate them, and they say no, one form of identification. They agree on that. The other thing discussed about, and I'll come to them, now issue for deal with the PR system, which they wanted to attach to the electoral. And when they do on both sides, at that time, the speaker directs them and say, it borders on constitutional amendment. Then he went on to say, already then at the president, and said the president can so direct for user. So that is how it came into the bill. But eventually, there will be another thing where even the bill will pass. Another issue they will look at. Under Section 34 of this new bill, we don't become law. It said in the exercise of his function, as per the Constitution, the commissioner shall not be subject to any direction or control or any authority save to be with appeal. So in other words, you get a section that the new bill will say the commissioner not subject to any direction. But at the same time, now that same commissioner they and the president don't direct for introduce the PR. You see where the problem still continues? Even with the new act. The order of finish, and I'll give you the roundup. Right? Now, issue where they talk about how for dismiss the commissioner. And then in a danger. Section 5.1 say a member of the Electoral Commission subsequent to subsection 8 of the Constitution 32 can be from office president for inability to discharge his function in office, whether arising infinity of mind or any other clause of gross misconduct. Don't hold that word in it. Gross misconduct. Parliamentarians, they spend a lot of time for that gross misconduct. They not pull them, they left them, which means on the one side of the bill, you say this man not subject to any authority. Same time, in sacking can be done for gross misconduct. But then you go further to say, waiting to the left and they now talk about, say, well, if they were removed from office, now the same Naingo set up a tribunal do for the Electoral. And when he set up a day, right, then he look into the conduct of the Electoral Commissioner, and then that need approval of it. So it all shows this fact about who they get. If the parliament approval, is it going to be a simple majority or a two-thirds majority? So let me hold my thoughts and left hand to you, Mr. Shillon, because of time, to come out with your link and some of these things I don't talk about, when at the same time they talk over and over, drafting law, controversy, and the executive power of the president. Over to you, Mr. Shillon.
Yeah. Well, it looks like this will go on in perpetuity unless we grab the bull by the horn and unless we get good faith actors, people who are acting in good faith in the interest of the country, not to people who are trying to give one group advantage over the other. And sooner or later, maybe in another generation, we will realize, say, a constitution is a good instrument, but a constitution is not perfect. But we for make up in such a way, or for draft in such a way that we for no say, the people who are drafting it are acting in good faith. Here you see a total lack of good faith on the part of the people that already introduced some of them bills here, and the people that already draft some of them laws here. Now, the gentleman from Maryland called concerning the 1978 and the 1991 Constitution. My thing is, generally speaking, any constitution that was drafted during the one-party era or with the one-party system in mind, I think it should just be nullified in whole. There is no point going through them. So like the 1978 Constitution, which will get its reluctance for just outlaw certain things, I don't see why it is still relevant. It should be just completely discounted, completely nullified, so we don't have to deal with it. Let's just stick with this 1991 Constitution we would get a problem with. You see?
Just a point, Mr. Shillon. It's been discounted. The crux of his argument was that the basis of that constitution, especially dealing with executive powers and things to do with party control over, 9 them put for 91 constitution, even though the 78 constitution not relevant. But
not relevant.
Yeah, 92 constitution the Grand Pekin. Because we get the first independence constitution, then we get the Republic Constitution, then the 1991 parliamentary. Now the Grand Pekin of that constitution there. So you get the DNA. And I will use the Swahili parable because of my Kenya link. And I translate in a Creole, they say, Minchokto Aneka and Nunoka. The son of a snake is a. So the 8th constitution was a snake. If you take and say Naina the Papa, we then change to the 91, inside a snake. So we therefore get rid of that completely. Then we for introduce a constitution when a dove, we go bring peace. Now the point that anyone go make.
Well, and which clearly say we know the act in good faith and with due diligence for make things easy for the country and for the courts. But my solution to some of them things, as I keep insisting, what are you going to do? Because even when the speaker was talking about constitutional amendments, okay, well, but let me go back to this thing where you talk about the commissioner, the electoral commissioner, that he can be ousted for misconduct. Now, I'm not versed in that. There may be some definition of what constitutes misconduct. Otherwise, the phrase misconduct, by American standard, can be stricken just for constitutional vagueness, because you have to specify what constitutes misconduct, and even that it can be challenged. So you could forget the court for fine-tune some of the elements, even where it go enumerate for say these are the factors that constitute misconduct. But then, Mr. Mengot, as you point out, you can see clearly the contradiction. On the one hand, they say they use the word shall with respect to the commissioner, that he cannot be dictated to or directed. Then another law say the president can, in consultation with that person, they can tell him what him for do. So all these contradictions, it just not make any sense. And we'll talk about people who want to know better, who should know what they're doing, who I'm convinced know what they're doing, but they know the act, in good faith, it seems to me. And until then, try to look beyond this party politics and get into doing what is good for the country, I think we'll keep getting a repeat of this situation, and things will never get better, and we will transfer their irregularities here to the next generation and the next generation. So we really need some serious-minded people. Like I said again, I see a lot of flaws in the system. I don't even see why the Attorney General is the kind of parliament, and even you may disagree with me. I know, say, with a copy from the British, but it's not everything. What works for them may not necessarily be practical for we. Because my own thing is, the Attorney General is part of the executive, as things are right now. He should have no business in Parliament coming there, bringing a statutory instrument, introducing it. He should have nothing to do with Parliament. I think that the members of Parliament, and then for the table legislation them, let them vote on them, or let them debate them, and then the other side take over for challenge the legality of whatever act is passed. That's all I got to say in terms of the current situation, the way we see them from the legal standpoint. I think the only arbiter now between, but you see, the executive now gets a dual role. They, on the one hand, they play a role in the Parliament by the Attorney General coming there, by the appointed clerk working at the Parliament. Then the executive get another role in the judiciary by appointing Chief Justice and Chief Justice working at the pleasure of the President. And the last time, I think if we were really a happy country, there are certain entrenched positions in the country that should not be subject to the pleasure of the president. And we will not say, number one, position of Chief Justice. We say number two, that of the Auditor General. We say number three, the Inspector General. And I think there were a couple more such offices that will fill.
Electoral Commissioner, Bank Governor.
Yeah, the Electoral Commissioner and the Bank Governor. If we can bring them 5 offices in there under control, that they are able, the leaders them, will be able for work.
Even the Ombudsman is another one.
There you go.
Although redundant.
Yeah, but you see, if we go help the country a great deal, because now people will exercise their power or their discretion without fear or favor. But for right now, everybody is protective of the livelihood or imposition, so they all they do which please the president. But it's not good for the country. So they have 5 positions or 6 positions there we'll talk about, and they will for start. For begin make them, they can make them term offices. You appoint the Auditor General for 5 years or 10 years, not subject, cannot be fired, except for certain conditions which should be defined. But the same thing with Chief Justice, Inspector General, otherwise we're not going to get anywhere, as far as I am concerned. Everything else is an exercise in futility.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Shilon. My final, I've been saying we're taking her to the journey. We don't do journey, we don't do stage 2 of the journey. And once you go say, when I question our left now people in mind, PR system was introduced to a bill. Members of Parliament, but then now come back with it from a presidential directive, which we are talking about. So now they will go hold with. We do hope that with Supreme Court judges, since they deal with a landmark case, they go hold in the interest of Sierra Leoneans and find the law for we, so we're able to get a peaceful election for see how we take Salone forward today. This time, my final word, as a co-host, Victor Mengot.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mengot. It's always a pleasure. Thanks for the immense contribution. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening. Thanks for calling. Thanks for contributing. Looking forward to seeing you now and talking to you now next week. Until then, good night, good evening, good morning. Thanks.